Hi, next let's look at fixed overhead variances. We are going to look at cost variance and volume variance for fixed overhead. Now, fixed overhead is just like variable overhead. They are related to manufacturing process. They are part of the product cost. They are untraceable to individual product. The only difference between variable overhead versus fixed overhead is variable overhead varies with the changes of the volume, production volume, and fixed overhead doesn't. For example, the rent of manufacturing building. We may be doing maintenance shutdown and no production at all. We still have to pay the rent. We may be making 500 units or 200 units. We're still paying the same amount of rent. So that's why it's called fixed overhead. Now, the cost variance equals actual minus budget. So for example, if the factory has only one kind of fixed overhead, just for the sake of understanding the concept, the budgeted rent is $1,000 per month, and in reality, by the time we get the invoice from the landlord, is $1,100 because they decide to raise the rent later in the year after we finished the budget. So we didn't know they were gonna increase the rent. We didn't budget the extra $100. Once the budget is approved, it's locked. So it's like a promise within the organization. So you can't go back and revise it. You just take the variance. If it's explainable, the management would understand. If it's waste of material, waste of labor, then that's a different matter. Okay, so that's part of the variance analysis, the purpose of variance analysis. So when we're calculating the variance, we're going to say, well, we thought we're going to spend $1,000, but we actually spend $1,100. So the $100 is unfavorable because actual is more than what the budgeted, and it's cost, so it's unfavorable. Now, the volume variance is budget subtract allocated fixed overhead. Now, this word allocated should ring a bell about what we learned in our last module. What happens is, if we think we're going to pay $1,000 rent and our budgeted production, let's say, is 500 units. So we're going to say, well, each product we are making, we need to build in $2, 1,000 divided by 500 units in its cost. So we're not undercharging our customers. So $2 is to cover the rent. So in our accounting system, in our cost system, we will say, well, every time we produce 1 unit, we load direct material, we load direct labor to the working process, which carries all the way to finished goods to inventory. Once it's sold, it's in cost of goods sold. So it's in our accounting system. So every time we produce a unit, we load $2. 2 units, $4. So if in reality we produce 501 units, we're going to allocate how much? 501 times $2. So we're going to allocate $1,002 in our system. So even we have a budgeted rent of $1,000, we don't load $1,000 one time. We load every $2 at a time. So by the time we loaded fixed overhead, when we finished all the production for this month, we loaded $102. Well, we over allocated $2. So the budget is $1,000, the allocated is $1,002. So we have $2 of favorable variance, which is purely driven by we made more. We made more. Why we say favorable? Because between the $100 unfavorable and $2 favorable, they net each other to be $98 of unfavorable. Guess what happened? We have $1,000 and $2 in our system. We paid $1,100 in reality. That's our $98.